something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop, children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. There's battle lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds are getting so much resistance from behind. Time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
Okay, hello, welcome to DayRelease, a month-ish podcast-ish thing where we review recent films from the last, at least this year, hopefully not too much later than this year, but because of the pandemic, we need to we don't talk. Well, a lot of films were delayed and things. I was talking to someone the other day and said, "Oh yeah, it came out last year," and then said, "Oh," and I said, "Yeah," and then later on in the conversation, I said, "Yeah, it came out in 2019," and he said, "Well, so that was 3 years ago," or whatever. And I went, because I've been, because of this, partly because of what we've been doing. A lot of the films we watched were 2019. Tried to release them in 2019, couldn't, and then ended up releasing them in 2021 or 22. And
I'm bad anyway.
Yeah.
In terms of like pretty much anything released in the 21st century, I think of as recent.
Yeah.
And the number of films like I've got on my list of things, so like I wrote them down. I wrote a note when they came out. Oh, must see that, and I'll refer to it as it just came out the other day.
Yeah.
And they turned out to be like from 2010 or something.
Yeah.
But to me, if you say 2010, I think recent. But actually, 2010 was 13 years ago, which I don't know. When we get into things that are like start with the 20, I lose sense of time.
Yeah, I think as a person, what happened was everyone was scared of the millennium bug and the clocks resetting on 1999, but that actually, I think that did happen to me, and everything after 2000 is now just the same as
I can't distinguish at least in terms of the numbers. Like if you refer to something like in context, like if you say, "Oh, it was the same year as this happened" or something like that, then I can contextualize it. But the numbers mean nothing to me. Whereas 1983 or 1996 or 97, they mean something to me. Yeah. But like 2004 or 2000,
anything from 2000 onwards is just the same smudgy year. 20.
So you have the same.
Yes,
have the same
I do.
problem.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Strange, isn't it?
I think I got the millennium bug. Anyway, we're doing Rimini, Infinity Pool, Maniac Driver, Enys Men, Sakra, and Holy Spider. So 6 films this month.
Bonus. Get in.
Yeah. We'll try and be as quick as we can.
Yes, and as you mentioned, because of the pandemic and lockdown, and all these films were actually filmed in 1976.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, Rimini. That's a kind of like a sad loner film of a guy who goes by the stage name of Richie Bravo, who's a sleazy. It's what's it called? He's a what's the name of it again? I looked it up. It's a slanger or schlager music.
Schlagen.
Schlager
Schlagen,
music,
yeah.
yeah, Schlager
Yeah.
music. Which, yeah, so he sings. I'll get to that in a second. But he sings Schlager music, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And he resides in the Italian resort of Rimini, and
Right.
this whole thing takes place in the off season, where it's it was good to see just you always think about that when you go on holiday, like what's this like in the off season, and it was nice to see kind of like the misery of a resort in
Yeah.
the off
I
season.
think as well this film probably means more to people who are familiar with. So from what I understand, so it's an Austrian film, right? And apparently this place Rimini was, once upon a time at least, was a bit of a popular holiday resort for Austrians, right? And some of so I think because I think like in the mid-80s there were like a couple of like sex comedy style films set in Rimini, right? It's kind of like Saint Tropez or somewhere like that. So it's
Okay.
somewhere that has a kind of, to us, I don't think we knew what Rimini didn't really mean much of anything.
No,
Right.
but I'm cheap, so I've been to resorts in the off season as well, and it was me and my partner, and then lots of German runners and various sort of people, well, mainly German fitness kind of doing fitness holidays. Anyway, so he and then his past catches up with him. His daughter comes along and demands money. At first, you're not entirely sure whether it is his daughter and he's just being conned. I don't know if you found that, but yeah, and then you gradually, see that she's probably telling the truth. And the other thing that he does is, so he's kind of like he's a shifty guy who makes his money during the off season wherever he can. So he does a lot of shagging grannies. In order he prostitutes himself basically as
it's a bit of a jig. Yeah, we should say that Richie Bravo is played by Michael Thomas, right? Who's very good, quite convincing. You get quite a few almost unbearably like long scenes of him doing his cabaret routine thing, which is just horrendous and kind of hilarious at the same time, right? Yeah. And he nails it. I think he nails the vibe, right?
Yeah. Well, have you ever? So, yeah. I mean, have you ever come across this kind of music? Because I have. If you go, I mean, if you go to, I've never been to Austria, but Germany, or and you watch TV on the hotel TV room or whatever, you often seem to come across these kind of characters, or I have. I thought, this is so, this seems such a peculiarly, sort of that sort of part of Europe style of kind of.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know what you'd compare it to. It's kind of like a power pop ballad or something, but like.
Well, online it was written as sort of, it was romance, music that's sort of reminiscing of,
nostalgic,
balladeering basically.
Yeah, and it's also like its values, like things that I suppose are considered cool, are like really corny kind of things, right? Like I don't know, it's very, very difficult to relate to.
Yes, well, it's poetic as well, so it's sort of slightly poetic, or I guess you could call it kind of like I don't really know. It's something. It is quite alien to me, but
Hmm.
I imagine it kind of being a bit like those those postcards or whatever that people put on Facebook or online. Yeah, live your life every day till the grape grows blue or whatever. What? What do you mean? A lot of the lyrics were kind of like that. Seemed, but yeah.
So it's a very slow moving film as well. So it starts off. It's kind of like it's. I think he's prompted to return home or something because his mother dies and he's got a father living in a living facility for. And then so there's a brother character as well. So apparently there's a companion piece to this film, right? There's another film called Wicked Games Rimini Sparta, or it's just called Sparta,
Yeah,
which
Sparta, yeah.
is the so we briefly meet Richie Bravo's brother, who isn't in it much. So, but apparently the other film, the companion piece, is all about the brother. So I'm guessing you might just see Richie Bravo briefly at the beginning of that film. But that other film I couldn't find a copy of to watch, and it's much longer. It's like 3.5 hours long or something. The other one.
3.5. It's ironic that you said wrong instead of long, because that would.
Right.
3.5 hours of him of an exploration of a paedophile would be pretty grueling, I imagine.
Is that what the other film's about?
Yeah,
brother.
He's a paedophile, or he's a paedophile who hasn't committed a crime or whatever. Hasn't
okay.
he's paedophilic intentions, but not
Right. He's an unsuccessful paedophile.
Yeah.
Which is probably the best kind, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want a successful paedophile.
No. Well, I mean, I don't think. Anyway, I haven't thought on it that much, and I'm sure after 3.5 hours, I probably will end up thinking about it way too much. But yeah,
I'm kind of a little bit curious. So both films are by this director Ulrich Seidel, right? Who's been about kind of making films for like 20 odd years or something now. I don't know if you've seen any of his other films.
No, I don't think so.
He's most famous for Dog Days, Import Export. He made one called Safari a couple of years ago, which looks kind of like he always picks like really awkward kind of topics to explore, right? Like he doesn't exactly do feel good films. Safari, I haven't seen Safari, but it looks kind of it's about basically Europeans going to Africa like as big game hunters, that kind of thing. Yeah, it looks kind of interesting.
That sounds
I've seen
good,
a couple
yeah,
of
good.
and none of the films I've seen, I mean, none of them are like fully like overwhelmingly, that was really good or satisfying, but they're all kind of a bit like, I don't know, it's like an itch or something that you try and scratch, and I felt it like a bit like that about this. I don't know how you felt about it. Like when Rimini finished, I can't say I felt like that was really good, but it I don't know, there's something annoyingly itchy about it.
Yeah, maybe. I guess it's with a film that's so bleak like that. It's a character study, isn't it? And it's kind of like it's sort of a well-known or well-trodden trope, that sort of down and out guy, and or kind of loser type.
I saw some people online, I suppose, compared it to The Wrestler, right? The Mickey Rourke.
Oh, right, yeah, I haven't seen that, but yeah, I could see.
Kind of in that vein, if you're looking for something like to compare it to, I suppose, a bit.
Yeah, but then this is so grimy.
Much more low key, right?
Yeah, and so low key. But I think the I don't know, the thing that so what did I write about it? But the thing that sort of occurred to me is just how you know, it's just exploring the kind of the the off season of everything, like
Right.
the plays, and then it had a kind of it also kind of has a is it not redemptive? It has not redemptive. What's the word when where everything comes full circle? It had that sort of aspect to it, where not redemptive, but just a sense of justice to it in a way, or something like that. I can't remember the word, but yeah, other than that, yeah, I think I was probably in a good mood to watch it.
I mean, the thing with something like this, I think, is when it's such a spot on, like, observation of something, it's weirdly like you don't really want to be in Richie Bravo's company so much, but it's so well, like little things like
okay.
It actually exists there. So, but the fact that he hangs out at a place called the 007 Club is like so perfectly naff, right? That is exactly where Richie Bravo would hang out, right?
But did you not then find? I mean, I found that. So maybe it's just me, but I found that I was rooting for him. Like I think that by virtue of being the protagonist, I kind of automatically am on the side of the central character. It comes with a certain amount of.
He's so like unapologetically seedy.
Yeah.
Yes, I couldn't help but like him as well, just because because towards the end of the film, he turns to some quite horrible means to make the money that he needs to make, right? I suppose the other thing about it as well, which is, I don't know, depending on where you, because Ulrich Seidel's kind of difficult to read like this, so you don't know if he's just. I think he just likes to be provocative, and so you were saying about that whole thing about being off. Everything is off season, right? So it's worth mentioning that when the daughter, as played by Tessa Goitica, turns up, she has a boyfriend, right? Yeah. Who seems to be an Arab, I guess. And he also has his kind of extended family or brothers or like a gang or something with him, right? And they move in. So I suppose there's that aspect as well, that clearly from Richie Bravo's point of view, he's not like full on racist, but he's clearly suspicious and uncomfortable that his daughter's girlfriend is an Arab, right? And that whole kind of, they move in. So there's that feeling about, is it the off season for white Europeans in a way, and I don't think Ulrich Seidel's, he's not like he's not like trying to push the Great Replacement theory or anything, but he's provoking like those kind of issues, I think.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, the first line is, I think it's the first line that he says is something to the doorman or something that's anti-Muslim, sort of Islamophobic.
Right.
And then so that's what I was talking about, the redemption aspect, but or what's the serves you right aspect. What the fuck is the word? Anyway, but
if you know, write
write in the comments in big capitals and tell me off for it as well. Call me that thing as well.
Make them flash as well.
Yeah.
So
but I do. Yeah, I think he does. I think he does deliberately play on. Oh yeah, to your point now, actually. Well, number one, I think he does deliberately play on that. As an audience, you're always rooting for the protagonist. So if you the next film, the Sparta one, you're going to be thrown about with this sort of aspect of of having your protagonist be, because he's not an anti-hero, he's the
He's
protagonist.
just what he is, isn't he? Yeah,
He just is what he is. Yeah,
and it's a very Ulrich Seidel thing to do, I think.
Yeah. But I quite like that. But then the other thing was the off-season thing, because that was fascinating, because he's just constantly, everywhere he goes, he's surrounded by there's loads of just migrants just kind of lying about or sitting against walls and stuff, seemingly starving. I don't know, is there one bit where a guy is actually starving? I can't remember.
Well, they're definitely down and out, right?
Yeah, they definitely is. Yeah, so that aspect of that aspect of life in general. Just before this, we came on air. We were talking about the holiday I went to in Portugal, and when you're on holiday, you get this feeling that what is it like when it's empty, and I was talking to the one of the staff members of the hotel, and he was saying he lives at the hotel during the peak season, and then goes and studies, and it's just this strange, it's this existence that's completely fabricated and superficial, while you're there, and will disappear, and the reality will be what's left. I think in that way, here, Richie Bravo is an embodiment of that, because he's in his off season. He was presenting. He tries to constantly present himself as this, shiny singing, crooner type. But he's in the off season, and he can't maintain that illusion any more than anyone else can in that situation, sort of thing.
It's interesting. Ulrich Seidel's films are the ones that I've seen. They all have this certain comment where I appreciate them, I suppose, more than I enjoy them. Like I like the fact that someone is making films about not, like you said, not even glamorous enough to be anti-heroes or anything. Just really kind of marginal, but not marginal in a cool marginal way. Just like marginal, deeply uncool way. But they exist. They're human. They're here. So it is kind of, you don't often see, someone like a Richie Bravo in a film and portrayed in like quite an honest, like, even though the scenes of him performing and doing his little stick to there's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek kind of slow motion car crash in it, but I feel not too much, right? It's not sneering or condescending. It's just very it's a fairly accurate portrait, I think.
I imagine so.
But, and like when the scenes as well, when he's having with some of his fans, right? I mean, they're also played like, they're not, they're not they're not sexy or arousing sex scenes, but they, I feel as if they do have, like, I don't think they're there just to be like, look at this kind of seedy, gross kind of. There's kind of passion there, right?
I agree. There's want and need, kind of resolved within it.
So you're not sneering at these characters, which I like, because you can imagine someone else making a film like this, and it would feel a lot more like
it could drift towards like Zoolander or something territory, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? Kind of. It's
been a while since I saw Zoolander, but.
Well, kind of mocking, and sort of parody type thing, and it's
no, it's not that kind of thing at all. But I don't know. It's here's a question: would you And if you would, who would you recommend this film? It's an odd one, right? Like, I can't imagine me saying to someone,
Yeah.
unless I really specifically knew that person in a way, and I knew this would appear. I can't imagine saying, "Oh, you really should check out that Rimini."
Well, yeah, I would only, yeah, it was the type of film that I would recommend in conversation about. Say I just happened to get into a conversation about weird types of Europop. Oh,
Right.
there's a film, you know. But I think he should do merch. I think that would be good. Yeah, he'd have a doll, Richie Bravo.
Richie Bravo. I wouldn't mind a little Richie Bravo in my car.
I would get one of those. I don't know why. Sort of, I would do that. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily. And then, you know, possibly someone you say, well, where do you get that doll from? And so, yeah.
Worth mentioning is that this was co-written with Mrs. Seidel, Veronica France, who also wrote and co-directed that movie, Good Night, More Me, that kind of strange horror-like film from a few years ago. So she makes kind of interesting films as well. Yeah, I don't know. I will endeavour to track down Sparta, I think, because I'm kind of curious to see.
I thought it's not come out yet, or has it come out?
I'm not sure. It's an odd one. It seems like it doesn't seem. It's like the yeah, it's like the sibling they've locked in the attic or something. Like Rimini seems to have had a proper release and is about, but Sparta, I don't know if it's headed for a big release or if it's just been slowly.
I think I might have read something online because I watched it a week and a half ago, so I've forgotten most of what I've read. But I thought I read something about it having an awkward delayed release for some reason.
Yeah, well, there was some controversy as well, wasn't there, on set? Something to do with someone, some kind of labor issue, something to do with exploitation of a cast member or something. There was some minor controversy about it. So I don't know if that's held up its release or I don't know. But I'm definitely I would be interested to see a film in which, yeah, like you said, where
in a way it's sort of like you're almost curious to see what your own reaction is going to be, aren't you? So,
exactly. Yeah. You want to see how whether you're more reactionary than you think you might be.
Am I going to be rooting for this guy? I want to know. Am I actually? Come on, you can do it.
Yeah, I can imagine these scenes of him like creeping up on a little girl's playground or something, and then she runs away, and you're like, oh, almost.
Yeah, seriously.
And then feeling deeply ashamed of it.
Anyways. Right.
Yeah, who knows? We might do it on here. We'll catch up with it maybe at some point. And, right, Infinity Pool. Third feature film from Brandon Cronenberg. So I think from now on, we're no longer obliged to refer to him as Son of David, right? He's his own fellow now, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Although that's exactly what I just did.
Yeah, you still do it anyway.
It's called having your cake and eat it.
Yeah, as long as you couch it in the fact that you no longer have to do it, then you can do it, you know.
So anyway, little David Jr.
Bitty little. Anyway.
After Antiviral and Possessor.
I haven't seen Antiviral, but I've seen, well, my Claire informed me that I've seen Possessor, but you know what my memory's like.
Yes, I wasn't a huge fan of Possessor. I did enjoy Antiviral. Possessor was the one Andrea Riseborough was like took over inhabited other people's bodies in order to like pull off assassinations and things, and then she got confused as to whether she was this person. It was, I mean, yeah, it was okay, but it was a bit like, this was more successful, I feel, in Vintage Old. But the thing they share a bit, I think, is Brandon Cronenberg sometimes doesn't. He has these ideas, I think, but then he doesn't quite know how to wrap it up, or he just kind of runs out of road a little bit with the concept, right? But
okay.
But in this case, yes, we got Alexander Skarsgård. James! James! Yeah, as a kind of writer with writer's block, with his missus on some sort of resort, which is referred to as the compound, right? It's in some very like poor country, and you get the idea that it's very much a playground for the wealthy, but people stay within the confines of the resort, right? Because if they step outside, they will meet resentful, violent locals.
Latolka. So it's fictional, but it's most of it's filmed in Croatia, isn't it? Because I recognised, anyway, I'll talk about that in a bit. But I recognised some of it. I think quite a bit of it's filmed in Croatia, isn't it?
Okay, right. Yes, and while there, they bump into a woman who seems to be a big fan of his first book, as played by Mia Goth, who's enjoying herself quite a bit here, I think it's fair to say. And so I don't know how far we want to go with, but I think we can probably do the first. So spoilers anyway, just in case anyone's blind watchers. So Mia Goth and her husband and Alexander Skarsgård and his wife, they go out, they leave the compound one day to just kind of take in the sights, and Alexander Skarsgård drives back to the compound while under the influence, and ends up hitting and killing someone, and then they flee the scene, right? And then soon the police are at his door, and there's like a lawyer style character who kind of insists that he take the rap for everyone, that he just says that he stole the car and there was, the other couple weren't involved. And he agrees to do this because it turns out there's some sort of, so the kind of main idea of this film, right, is the fact that, so it's eye for an eye apparently in this place. So if the sons of the man he turns out to have killed get to kill him in return, but he can pay to have a physical double of him, like a clone of him, basically, with all his memories and everything, to take his place at the execution, right? So so we kind of go from there, right? So I suppose there's this, and then it continues along that. So it's kind of I guess this kind of extended metaphor about exactly how much humanity you can buy, right? You can pay off your bad behavior, I suppose, and what happens to a person if you have that option, right? Like, how corrupt are you going to get? How So that's the starting point for this, I guess.
Yeah, I think any more would probably be too spoilery, but what happens if you see yourself die, isn't it? And how liberating is that? That's
right. And I suppose there's the whole thing as well about, you don't know, well, so if the clone is implanted with your memories, then how do you know it's the original you that's been killed? Or, I mean, there's a lot of that stuff in here. I feel as if Brandon Cronenberg has a few too many ideas that he can actually deal with. So the film I think the film's too long for a start. It's close to 2
Yeah, it was
hours.
very long. Yeah. I just watched it today, and
Right.
um,
And also I feel as if like at a certain point, like he's got these kind of quite cool concepts and ideas, but after a while he kind of doesn't know what to do with them anymore. So we just get a kind of some trip sequences and some
yeah,
orgy.
there were some unnecessary bits in there, like the trip sequence. I think didn't
Yeah.
really need to be in there. He like you're saying, he didn't really know where he was going with the concept. But again, holiday movies. That was another holiday movie, and it was
Right.
nice you know, to have this kind of resort idea, and then have something bizarre happen within it, and it is so bizarre that you couldn't have predicted that it was going to go that way. When when that you could kind of, the signals are there right from the beginning when they're putting in this little show on for the guests, and you get the feeling that those people who are allowed from outside the compound to perform for the guests, wearing these really incredibly creepy skin masks, with a mouth with coins in it and stuff, and proper horror masks, and that was all really well, like, set up, ready for ready for your expectations to be kind of
Right. It also made me laugh. There's one bit where in the hotel one night they have traditional Indian dancing, and there's like a very non-Indian looking, and the Chinese restaurant, like with a guy.
with the long, and those details were really great and incredibly deliberate. But in a similar way that, like, again, talking about holidays where there's so much artifice, oftentimes the people that are there, everyone wants to think that the people that are in that hotel are local, don't they? The guy who I spoke to in
authentic experience, right?
The guy who I spoke to in Portugal was studying, astrophysics in Lisbon. He wasn't from where I was at all, and he's just as much of a traveller as I was, sort of thing, a tourist almost as I was, but everyone does want that kind of authentic experience, which is pretty much all artifice, and there might be one or two kind of odd people, and so that who are locals, and so that was good, because the local people were the local kind of police officer person was kind of scary guy.
But it is kind of, I mean, overall, I'm quite favourable to, like, I'm glad he did make this film, and he tried to approach some of these, even if the end result isn't as good as it could have been. It is kind of an interesting. I mean, in retrospect, I suppose the concept itself is kind of a bit straight, like it's a bit convoluted, really, isn't it? If you want to approach the idea of rich people kind of taking advantage of their surroundings to do things they wouldn't be allowed to do in their own countries. It's a bit of a slightly convoluted, like, oh, how about if you can clone yourself? And,
yes, it's one of those ones where, if you have different ideas and you place them together, sometimes they match wonderfully and they seem to work. They make logical sense. Whereas this one was like kind of I guess it could have worked in a different way, but it was never going to work as a kind of, because it's almost like a sci-fi idea. The body double cloning thing, and to throw it into this sort of I don't know what, I can't think of a film that it's like, but this resort idea, and this is kind of, it didn't really work, but you could do something else, and well, for a start, you could have made it shorter, and it would have
Yeah,
worked if you
shorter
cut a
would have
lot
been good.
more, because some of
I
it
did
was
quite.
some of it was hard to act, wasn't it? I mean, is it Alexander Skarsgård? He's a good
Yeah,
he's a good actor, but he was struggling at times with the material, to kind of look convincing yet again that he's scared and upset. Sometimes he's really good at it, and then other times it's sort of like, it feels like he was, they were kind of improving or something. It was a little bit like,
yeah. Alexander Skarsgård's one of those guys. I feel almost as if he's like it's slightly he's asking for a bit too much, because he often seems to try and play characters which are, yeah, like you said, like slightly like an underdog character, or he doesn't often play the handsome alpha male in the room. But he was fucking Tarzan, for fuck's sake. So sometimes it's a bit hard to. I'm not sure if I buy him as a kind of nebbish, bookish type, or like, I'm pretty sure.
Well, he likes to be the vulnerable alpha male, or
Yeah,
something
and that's
like
not
that.
on. I mean, if you're cut like that, you're not allowed to play these. No, you can't. You're already got a big slice of the cake, lad.
Yeah.
Let someone else who looks more like that to play that role, right?
I enjoyed True Blood. I think I mentioned this last time, watched a Skarsgård film. I quite liked True Blood, and he was in that as a vulnerable.
Right, that was the TV series, right? The
Yeah.
vampire. Yeah. Yeah. So we're talking about Skarsgård, but this is Mia Goth's film, though, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
I mean, she's having a really good time, I feel, and she's fun to watch as well. Actually, she's when she wants to. I mean, she's she's one of those. I don't know how to explain. She commands. She's a real screen presence, isn't she?
Yeah. Yeah. She was. I mean, she's playing a pretty annoying character, but well.
Yes.
And kind of, she's an annoying and very frustrating character, like like a kind of like a an advert gone bad or something. I don't know. It's like a kind of
yeah, annoying, but also kind of very alluring. I mean, she's one of those actors, I think, who's she really understands her own physicality, I think, in a way. Like sometimes people are cast for, they look sexy or good looking or whatever. But what I like about her is she seems totally fully in control and totally aware of what her screen presence is, right? Which is quite impressive, but in a way that isn't self-conscious either. I mean, I don't know. I get the feeling that I mean, what is she now? 30 years old or something like that. So she's only really getting started in a way. I feel like the more we watch her, she's like gonna turn out to be like really phenomenal, like in the future. Like she'll have some amazing roles, I think, because she's already doing pretty well.
Yeah, well, and she seems to like the off-key, off-beat roles, which I think always helps people, because if doesn't look like she can easily be looking at her IMDb profile, doesn't look like she can easily be typecast,
right
already, and and so if she, it looks like she's got a long career, and it's but yeah, so like you were referencing earlier, the yelling at him in the car, and the Jay.
Yeah, the tone is just
yeah.
just right, just needlingly
Yeah, it's
enough.
irritating. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you can't help
But it's
feeling undermined yourself. Like,
yeah, but it's important for you to understand his character as well. That she's not just she has to be annoying and hot, right? Otherwise, it doesn't make sense, right? Why he would keep coming back, right?
yeah,
It's like, for instance, when he freaks out that time and she tries to get him to come back, like she doesn't just say like I'm sorry or sorry about it. She says she says something like oh don't be such a big. It's so unattractive, like.
Yeah, he's got a very thin skin anyway, hasn't he? So that's why he was vulnerable, because so it was the two went together quite nicely.
Yeah.
He was, you know,
another element I quite liked about this, but again, there's a lot of these in this film. I feel as if there's like elements that I like, but at the same time, those elements don't really add up to like. So, for instance, I think if you actually had this, you know, these wealthy people, and they come up with this way that you could kind of live out real fantasies and get away with it. If it was real, then I suspect the process would have become much more refined and comfortable for the people who pay for it, right? If you were to try and make this a reality. However, even though it doesn't make sense, I like the fact, just in and of itself, I like the fact that the process is really quite grotty and un-sci-fi kind of futuristic shit. That room that fills with that horrible
sort of
liquid and
type stuff.
sewer pipe or something. Like I like that, just as a visual and an idea. But I don't know if it actually makes sense in the world of the film. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It was like there were elements of sort of, well, I mean, was it? I don't know what the budget was, but there were elements of kind of James Bondiness. There was this big control room, so there was some weird sci-fi stuff, but it only flashed through. And then it's kind of odd in terms of like some aspects looked. There was sort of a lot of we're going to talk about it in the next film, but a lot of giallo kind of blood and lighting as well, and that bit where he's, you know, that was a kind of giallo bit, wasn't it, with the, you know, the sort of alginate type stuff that's coming up and around his ankles, sort of bloody, gooey.
I don't feel as if that was necessarily a budget constraint. I feel as if he wanted to do it shiny, futuristic-y, and I'm sure he could have done that because he's you know, he's so it's a choice, isn't it? I think, as opposed to a
and you know, like lots of different elements, like we were saying, just not necessarily seamless, but she was great most of the way through, I'd say.
A lot of interesting ideas, kind of fun. Too long overall, didn't really totally work, but you know, nice try. I look forward to see his next film, right?
Yeah, that bit at the end on the bus, just harking back to Croatia. We were on that. I swear we were on that same road on that island.
Oh, really?
And with, you know, on the bus, on the local bus, and it was absolutely fucking terrifying. It was like really like a sheer drop, and the bus driver was just talking to all the, you know, there was like all the local people, and they were all going, and he was never. He hardly looked at the road at all. He's like, oh, we're there.
Was he saying, rubbish?
Well, I quite frankly would have, you know, if the bus had been stopped by a bunch of cars, and they would have, you know, offered me a lift, but, you know, also pain and humiliation, I would have taken it, I think. Anyways.
Okay, next up, Enys Men. Second feature from Mark Jenkins. Made Bait a few years ago, which was rather enjoyable. And similarly, using his kind of handmade process, right? Using an old wind-up Rolex, which is, I mean, it's easy to kind of make it sound as if you're just fetishizing this kind of thing, but it's more than that. I think there's something. It's an important part of his process, I think, of the way he makes films. Like, I don't think he just does it this awkward, old-fashioned way, just for fun, right? Like, it seems intrinsically. I don't think he can make films another way, right? And the old-fashioned way he's gone about making this film, really, the material benefits from it, right?
Yeah,
I think.
if you're going to film a film based in 1973 or whatever, 1970, was it 1979?
1973, yeah.
And everything else was so, you know, the everything in that film is so basic and as it was, you know, having a generator and you know, and that little it's just you know, having you probably can kind of it will give you flashback. It will have given you flashbacks as well to your childhood, I guess, because to me it gave me strong flashbacks of all sorts of things, you know.
Yes, but again, I think it's important that we don't, because the thing is, I think that also, I think critics of this kind of thing would say, well, it's just feeding into your nostalgia for a certain sort of creepy British rural kind of folk horror-y thing that you would find in old like kids TV shows and things like that. And certainly that's part of it, but I don't know. So first, I just out the gate, just to make it. So I loved Enys Men, and I feel it's kind of, because it's so easy to kind of, I think it's so easy to like just assume it's because it's playing to the gallery, like it's playing to certain things that I love, right? And it's going for that nostalgia. So it would be very easy to like, no, well, you just like that because, you know, you like those things and you grew up at that time. But I honestly, genuinely think it's beyond that. I think the film would, like, I think this film would work for, like, let's say a 15-year-old who was into it now, right? Like, I don't think you have to be old gits like us to maybe get something out of it. Do you know what I mean?
No, I mean, sure, yeah. You know, depending on yeah, if they are happy, just, I mean, it's more about atmosphere, the film, than
absolutely, yeah, yeah. No, it is a film
the
that
nostalgia
but do you know what I mean?
aspect, you know?
Do you know what I mean? In so much as like you can, this is so geared for us in a way that I almost feel like I have to make a case for like why I like it. So I mean, maybe you don't like it as much as I do. I don't know, but I just I can. It's. I genuinely think it's not just because it's tapping into certain things that interest me. I really think this is quite something, and it would work for anyone really looking for a good cinematic experience.
Well, I think it's yeah. Well, should we do the plot or not? I think it's beautiful, you know, as a film. And you don't need it. You don't need it to strike a nostalgic bone in your body for it to still be beautiful. You know, it really is. You know, the grain and the kind of
yeah.
You know, because it's not just the like late 70s stuff that's in the film. It's also the place where it is,
Yes.
and
So
yeah.
no, I suppose it's just because it does speak to me so loudly as well, though, just on a personal and a nostalgic level. I suppose, I suppose I'm justifying it to myself in a way, like I feel as if, because that stuff is so loud. But I instinctively think it's a really good film anyway, regardless. But yeah, so Mary Woodvine, who used to be on, do you remember that show Space Precinct?
I saw that in her IMDb, and I cannot remember it. That program. Sorry.
It was like one of the last. It was one of the last like Jerry Anderson series he made. It was on BBC Two in like the mid-90s or something. It was like a live action.
I thought it was a Jerry Anderson, but was it because it wasn't it live action but with models or?
Yes, pretty much, yeah. The big star in it was Simone Bendix, right? I was kind of not vaguely famous briefly for being in that, but I think she's Belgian or something. Anyway, Mary Woodvine of Space Precinct fame.
Yeah. I feel
plays,
like she's probably really familiar to me. That's why. Another nostalgia aspect to your denial.
She's she's a kind of volunteer on this island off the coast of Cornwall, which is not. I mean, it's quite convincing, but it's not an island. Apparently, it was just filmed around the coast. They didn't actually film it on an island. And she's there taking observations, right, of some sort of fauna, these flowers growing in the area.
Which you imagine is like a rare flower,
Yeah, and she's writing things down in a notebook, which is mostly just no change, right? And until, she starts noticing some things growing on the flower. And like you said, it's very bare bones. She's just got this generator, an old generator to keep her going. Drinks tea. Bit of a crisis when the tea and the petrol for the generator almost run out. So she gets supplies. This guy comes in, Edward Rowe, who was the star of Mark Jenkins' first film, Bait. And she also seems to be having some sort of, I don't know, they're either memories or hallucinations or dreams or flashbacks or
ghosts.
Yeah, there's like a young woman who might, I don't know, be a daughter or something, or she may have died. Because that's the thing as well. I wasn't sure. Is she remembering things that happened before, or is she maybe imagining things that might happen in the future?
I thought she was because she's got the scar on her belly, and it was her. So she's basically
could be her.
Lived on that island, I imagined, for a really long time, and then got a job. By virtue of knowing the island so well, having access to these flowers. I read a line.
And there's a standing stone, and then there's this lichen that spreads, and she reads that book, A Blueprint for Survival, right?
Which was
so it's not. No, go ahead.
Yeah, which was a big book, wasn't it, at the time?
Kind of like up there with like Silent Spring and stuff like that, right? Like eco warning kind of bestseller. I was actually kind of quite keen to read it after seeing this film. I've never actually read A Blueprint for Survival, but so it's not a straightforward narrative by any means. I mean, it's very much a film up for interpretation. And like we said, it is infused with a certain amount of nostalgia, both in terms of the look and also kind of themes and things that it, there's, you will think of old folk horror films and TV series like Children of the Stones and Owl's Circus and stuff like that. Yes, and it looks fantastic. Like it's got really great like color and I quite like as well that he's processed all the film himself as well. So it's got slight imperfections, hasn't it? But they're played.
I didn't know that.
They're played really well. Like it's not the same as like so. I suppose some people would compare it to the way like when Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez did that Grindhouse thing, and they had like this awkward splices and but it's not that, because that just seems very kind of contrived and like this feels more like it's not he's actually gone back and used the process and any imperfections that have come through, they feel like they're not fetishized imperfections, or it's a genuine process. Like he could have shot this on an iPhone, right? But he's not going to shoot it on an iPhone, because I was reading an interview with him and he was saying along that there's something about making it difficult that makes it easier for him, or like if it's too easy, like having restrictions makes it easier to do it, because you have like rules. You're like, you can't shoot more than 20 seconds or whatever, and you can't do this and you can't do that. So you're like, okay, got it, I understand. Whereas if you shoot it on an iPhone and you edit it, there's a whole world of possibilities, and it stops you in your tracks, right? You can't do it.
I agree. I mean, at first, I didn't know anything about him, so I thought, oh, is this a film that's shot on on a red whatever camera and processed later, and then I gathered actually no, it is too authentic to you
can tell it's not.
You hope you can tell, but then I mean, I wonder, is there a limit? I was talking to someone the other day who had this guy who was like in his 20s, and he had like not a Hasselblad, but like a camera that you take a picture like that. But not Hasselblad, but because that's too expensive. But so all of these kind of old processes are kind of coming back and are de rigueur at the moment. Vinyl, blah blah, tapes, CDs. My daughters are getting into tapes, and it's like I'm kind of, I'm all for it really. I wonder what the limits are in terms of. I mean, what I'd really like to see is just aside from this, because is sort of an advanced animatronics in films. Advanced animatronics and stop motion would be nice. Where you use a bit like the fact that the green screen has changed. How they've got the new process where you film what you have your background actually in the background, and it's synced up using computers and using LiDAR type cameras or whatever to judge the movement. But that aside, these sort of old processes are are just enjoyable to sort of sit in every time. I don't know whether there are whether it would if too many people do it. Do you think it could become?
No, I don't think. I don't think too many people would. I think there has to be a feeling of like you said. There's kind of the hipster thing when everyone kind of jumps on the bandwagon, right? But then there's always the first few people who start doing this kind of thing. I think they do it because that's their way of. I mean, for instance, I haven't done it for a while now, but when I used to make music, I know I can go on here, and I know I can access all sorts of amazing, really advanced sound editing techniques and stuff even for free, right? Is within my reach. But that's so, for me, that's so like blindingly like infinite. The possibilities are so infinite. I never do it. But when I grab my old like analog 8-track mixer thing where you mix down onto a CD, you burn a CD, and like I can deal with that.
Yeah.
Like some of those restrictions make things more possible. Like
I understand, and I do think there's a kind of there's been an epidemic almost of that's the right word. I don't really want to. Can I scratch that word? But there's been a kind of an epidemic of like a problem created by all this choice and infinite possibility that has resulted in kind of a lot of mediocre stuff being splurged and spaffed everywhere.
But that's the weird thing, isn't it? Is considering the possibilities for the endless possibilities for using that technology. It's amazing how many people end up using it exactly the same way, and it gets a uniform look, right? Because I know people lack a certain imagination or something, or
well, I remember before we are getting nostalgic now anyway, but
we are
I think it was inevitable.
Slightly into old git complaining territory.
It's just not the same as it used to be. But I was just thinking back, like to before the internet and before, and how my imagination would sort of get fired up when these technologies were sort of in their nascent in the early days, the internet, but also CGI and stuff like that, and just thinking about like all the things that I could do, and then it was almost like it all kind of came along, and all those ideas were sort of lost because there's a a lot of ideas do get kind of generated in the very beginning of something, and then once the technology kind of beds down, the thing that the inspiration just is hard to picture anymore. You can't sort of go, oh, we could do this with it, it just doesn't seem to work anymore. And I can't remember what the things I was all fired up at when I was younger. Anyway, back to the film. But yeah, in a similar way,
I'll never call it Snickers. It's marathon to me.
Yeah, the film. I did love the nostalgia aspect of it, though. I can't lie. Yeah, the generator just brought me joy.
You did like the film.
I did like it. Yeah, I mean, it's not is it's yes, it's enjoyable. It doesn't have a plot really, does it? So it's not like
like you said, it's a mood piece or an atmosphere.
It's not something that I would say, oh, you got to see this to many people, because it doesn't have a plot.
Yeah, it would be. I think it would be pearls before swine for some people, right? They're just not going to, like, they might just watch and go, sir.
Like, why not just why not just take some lovely photographs instead? Well, they did, and then they kind of weaved it into a sort of kind of narrative-ish, and Yeah, what's that thing again? The Children of the Stones, or what was it called again?
Yeah, Children of the Stones,
yeah,
the HT show. Yeah,
yeah.
do you remember
It
that?
had that feel about it. Yeah. Yeah, it was it was good. I liked it. Yeah, I liked it. I watched it today, so yeah,
Hmm.
and along with Infinity Pool, so it was kind
Right.
of
I plan to watch it again. I feel it's a film I'll enjoy going back to
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
times and supping of it.
I'd have to give it some time. I think, yeah, like but yeah, those types of films where they kind of get under your skin, or they seep into your skin a bit
Yes.
like the weather,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Uh, you kind of it, that's the type of film you'll be thinking about a few days later when
Absolutely.
probably when I'm caught in the rain or something. I don't know, but yeah,
Right. Or your generators run out of
yeah,
petrol.
exactly, yeah.
Uh,
Okay, next we're gonna do the film called Sakra, which has got
right.
Donnie Yen in it, and
Your mate Donnie.
yeah, and Clive's gonna do the plot of that because he can. Watched it the other
Well,
night.
a little bit. I mean,
Mm.
I'm not going to do the. I mean, so first off, so this is a adaptation of Louis Cha's novel Demigods and Semi Devils, which has been filmed several times before. The one I'm familiar with is there's a Shaw Brothers film from 1977 called Battle Wizard, which is fucking insane and bonkers and lots of fun. And then there's a Demigods and Semi Devils from 1984. There's a 1994 film called The Dragon Chronicles, and then there's at least like half a dozen TV series is based on it as well, because the source novel's like really quite long and complicated. So you kind of need a TV series to deal with it, really. Apparently the one from the Hong Kong TVB series from 1982 is considered like the definitive screen adaptation, apparently. I haven't seen that one myself yet because it's probably like 500 episodes long or something. But I'll get to it at some point because it's quite well regarded. So obviously cramming all this into like a 2-hour 10-minute film is gonna be a problem. So it's not surprising that this film, even if you know Demigods and Semi-Devils, is pretty confusing. It's quite hard to keep track of everything that's going on, even though they have pared down. It doesn't have all the characters, and it's like part. And I felt. Did you feel as well when the film ended? It felt like it's gonna be continued, right? There's gonna be a Sakra 2 or something in a couple of years.
Yes, I think so. If I can remember it rightly, it all went a bit funny, but yeah. Anyway, what's the plot?
But so you have.
Are you gonna
I
have a
mean,
go?
it starts off. So Donnie Yen is Chia Feng, right? And he's like the hero of is it the Yan? So we're in early North Song Dynasty, apparently, which is a long fucking time ago, circa a long time fucking ago. And he's one of the former Yan Kingdom loyalists, but he's accused of being a Khitan, which is kind of like a roaming but nomad kind of ethnic group.
Yeah. Did you say you researched some of this or not? Because I did mean to, and then I didn't. So I thought Khitans were sort of like Mongolian.
That kind of thing would be a good analogy. Yeah.
Okay.
And he's accused of being a traitor, and he's accused of being a Khitan, and because it turns out he was this baby left on the doorstep kind of story, right? And he's also framed for the murder of his parents, and then while in exile, he meets up with Chen Yuki, I think, who's like was tasked with stealing some martial arts documents from the bad guys. Wu Yue is the main bad guy, I think, and yeah, and then he has to go back to he's exiled from the beggars gang, right? And he has to go back and fight with the beggars gang in order to save her life. So it's basically Donnie Yen is like the hero of fucking everything, everywhere, anytime. He's like the dude.
Yeah.
And everyone else decides that he's not. But he's Donnie Yen and he's brave and strong and always does the right thing. He's almost annoyingly good, really. And he fights a bunch of people, and there's a lot of CGI, which unfortunately isn't quite good enough to carry off the set piece. I mean, there are some quite
there's wire work as well. There's wire work as well. Go on, anyway, Karen.
Yeah. Well, the annoying thing about this, right, is because the thing is, the people, the actors and the craftspeople, everyone in this film are doing extraordinary things. There's extraordinary wire work, there's extraordinary acrobatics, there's extraordinary costume design, there's extraordinary set. All the stuff. I'm not saying these people aren't doing great work. They are doing great work, but it's constantly undermined by just looking very unconvincing and fake. And it's a shame because they're not doing brilliant stuff. Even though they're on wires, just doing that jumping around a wire, that's hard to do. That's not doesn't mean it's easy to do just because you're on a wire, right? Or you're assisted by CGI. It's still amazing stuff. But it always, it's undercut, so it's never awe-inspiring. Unfortunately,
it's a victim of that you can do anything nowadays mentality. But like one thing I hadn't seen in any martial arts films, maybe you'd seen now, is sort of like this crossover between martial arts and gaming or whatever it is. Like, so that they are using the drifting thing that you get in gaming, where a character will drift like right, and then, and then do a punch, and then
which would seem a fit with this kind of wuxia genre. I understand why they do that, but
it didn't work.
No. And I know, and it's not just this film. I'm not putting all the weight of it. I mean, there's a lot of recent historical martial arts epics like this that it's the same problem. But I think because this was the big new Donnie Yen film, I thought they might have upped their game and it would be better than a lot of those other films.
Yeah.
But it's really, unfortunately, even though it does have its moments, there's a few bits I found kind of exciting. But plus, the story's a fucking mess. Plus, weirdly, even Donnie Yen's face looks like it's been CGI. There's something.
At times, yeah. Well, definitely when he turns into a CGI character, he'll drift off, and then it'll be him, and then CGI him, and then it's sort of like a bit like sort of the Matrix or something, something like that, where they suddenly turn into a CGI character, and it's just jarring. But and then he kind of loses his power as a result of that. But I did like the bits where he's smashing people through the stage. That was good.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's an infuriating watch, really, because you can imagine if they'd have got everything just a little bit right, then it would have been quite a fun adventure.
Yeah. But culturally as well, we're not familiar with the story, and so I can't ride along with it in that respect.
Yes, that's true. That was a bit of a block as well. I don't know. And Donnie Yen's character is just he's such a fucking hero. Like, he always takes the higher ground, right? Like, even when people are being mean to him, and I mean, actually, one of the most enjoyable bits for me, one of the most satisfying bits, is when is one of the few times where his character isn't utterly benevolent, right? So when he goes back to the beggar gang, and after they do the long toasting to each other, and like which I quite like that scene, and then once that's out the way, he's like slicing his old friends into bits. I thought, oh, this is quite this is a little bit, it's got a bit more edge, right? Because he isn't just being wonderful, he's actually killing people in nasty ways. I thought, that's a bit more like it. I could get on board with him more than when he was just an utter fucking saint for the rest of the film, right? Where his shit doesn't stink.
Yeah, I guess I think of RRR and why that was so enjoyable and why this is not quite so enjoyable. I think it's because it's similar in CG aspects,
yes.
But yeah, I guess it's just because I think Donnie Yen himself is, pretty good martial artist. Is enjoyable to watch him punch somebody, from my point of view. Having just recently become a fan, thanks to you, and I don't like to see people kind of CGI'd. They have this power CGI'd away with
Well, I mean, the good thing is now, as a new fan, that you can go back and you can watch all the old Donnie Yen films where that doesn't happen. So there's some treats in store for you. There we go. I just had an idea. Yeah, I mean, what else do we want to say about Sakra? I mean,
I can't really think of anything. Yeah.
No, I mean, at least it didn't suffer from. I guess just because it's a historical, so it's far enough away in the past, so it didn't suffer from. Sometimes when Hong Kong mainland productions suffer from, you could feel the hand of the Chinese censor, like. That didn't necessarily seem to be a problem. Again, we're not culturally plugged in enough to notice there might be some subtle historical revisionism or something. But it didn't. It was the kind of film you can watch without that doesn't encroach upon it, right? Like, you're not worrying about the mainland messaging or censorship.
Yeah. Well, like if it was a war film or something, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It doesn't feel like there's any propagandizing. Or, you don't have to worry about the fact that they have to explain that there's no such thing as ghosts or something.
Yeah.
And even though there's a lot of kind of supernaturally type stuff going on, right? But it's couched in the world of martial arts, right? So
yeah, I mean, there were lots of little enjoyable moments, weren't there? Like, it's nice, I would like to see it. You're right. I would have liked it to have been. I don't know how they would have tightened up and stuff, and just because of having the supernatural element to the martial arts and the, I think that's really, that could be really enjoyable. I just didn't think it was that good, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, it's it's a shame because I like seeing, because at the end of the day, even though the CGI undercuts it and is a bit dodgy and all that, this is still preferable to me than like a Hollywood superhero blockbuster. Even the effects and everything and work in that stuff is obviously much more well polished and kind of. I still prefer to see this kind of thing, even if it isn't done as well,
Yeah, I agree. I like, having a, because I mean, you can imagine, I don't know, Thor throwing a telegraph pylon at um, Captain America, and then go, but and stopping it and then sliding backwards. But it was better it being Donnie Yen.
Yeah. Well, I think
And that other guy. That was
in a
good. That's
Marvel
what I was
film,
just thinking about.
the difference would be it would be really polished and good looking and slightly more believable, but the narrative would be so predictable. The tone would be so predictable. Whereas with this, even though it's a bit shoddy here and there, I can't say it was super cliched in the way that Donnie Yen's the big hero, but it was still I didn't know how it was going. Do you know what I mean? Like there was still imagination in the action set pieces.
There's a lot of sort of philosophy in there. I don't know if you, had any thoughts on that. Like sort of, I don't know, the stuff that I didn't really understand, kind of Zen-ish, or I don't know, I don't know. Kind of,
I don't. I mean, there was a lot. There's a lot. Like I said, there's a lot that I don't know if they. It's difficult to tell if it's a botch job or if they've deliberately, because the source material is familiar from other films and TV series. If they've decided for a domestic audience, well, we don't need to explain that. We don't need to waste time explaining that.
Everyone will get that reference to, the leaf blower, flies on the east wind.
Exactly, like everyone knows about it. No need to mention that again. Don't bring up that leaf blower on the east wind. But yes, for us, it's or that could just be us looking on the bright side. It could just be a botch job as well, and maybe Chinese audiences are going, as well.
Yeah.
Put on, check it out.
That was unbelievably realistic. So the next film we're going to talk about is Holy Spider, which takes place in the city of Mashhad in Iran, and it's based on a true story about a serial killer who murders a bunch of was it 16 women, and
in the film, it's 16,
and in real life it was 16 women. I think there's been quite a few different versions of this story retold.
Is that right?
Yeah, and I think when I read about it, maybe even a TV series as well. But and he saw himself as on a mission from God to cleanse the world of to cleanse the city of its debauched women.
Yeah. In the film, he mentions Imam Reza, right? They changed the name, so I'm guessing that's not, but it's clearly based on some particular imam, right?
I can't remember what I read. Anyway, so we follow a journalist as she she becomes obsessed about this killer, when sort of everyone else, these are all crimes of convenience, and they are they are turning a blind eye to the deaths of all these prostitutes, because he kills prostitutes, and he drives about on his motorbike, and kind of then follows offers these prostitutes money and then takes them back and kills them. And it's, of all the films we watched in this episode, it's the only one that is seriously realistic, isn't it? I think
it feels really authentic, doesn't it? Like, yeah, I mean, I've never been to Iran, anywhere in Iran, Mashhad or anywhere, and I know it was shot in Amman in Jordan, right? But yeah, it does feel, yeah, it felt very real to me.
Well, I mean, people were walking out of the cinema when it first came out. I think because it didn't it win at Cannes or something like that, and yeah, and people were walking out. People walked out within the first sort of 20 minutes. Quite a few people can't stomach. I think because the first scene, or the first setup of the film is graphically violent murder and rape.
Yes, I suppose it's interesting that you bring that, because I read some stuff as well, and I realized that because of my regular viewing habits, I think I've forgotten what most regular people consider uncomfortable. Or that's not to say I didn't realize that obviously some parts of this film are disturbing, but I don't know. I'm not the right person to judge whether something is more graphic or disturbing than usual for most audiences. So, do you think this probably is a bit more out there than most people are used to in their cinema?
I think it's just that it's so it's really well portrayed and really really realistic.
Yeah, and it's strangling as well, right? So it's up close and personal. It's not a gunshot or even it's not even a stabbing or something. It's like you're staying with the victim as they're slowly losing their life, right?
And there's an obvious purpose to that. So in a way, those who didn't stick with it are doing or are guilty of the crime of that or the injustice that the film is trying to redress, which is that because they were, these women were all prostitutes and helpless, the authorities turned a blind eye to it and allowed it to carry on with. I mean,
they're cleaning up the streets for.
Yeah,
he's cleaning up the streets for them, right?
Almost. Yeah, that's how they.
So it's interesting. So, like you said, I was reading a bit about it. It's kind of somewhat loosely based on this. The real guy's name was Saeed Hanai, right? And he was a veteran of the Iran-Iraq Wars. The character here, I have got to say, the guy who plays him, Mehdi Pakistani, is excellent.
Yeah, both are excellent. Now what's the Alice
Zara Ibrahimi. Yeah, she's the so the main character protagonist is a journalist, right? Who's trying to get to the end, to the bottom of it, but is
I can't remember whether that's real as well. I think that might have been real. But anyway, I can't remember, as in a real story.
Apparently the main fabrication they made, the main way they changed it was she wasn't one of his. She wasn't almost his last victim, right? That bit was made up. They didn't do that. She puts herself in peril, right, and poses as a streetwalker.
Yeah.
So he picks up, and obviously, as the film as well has a certain agenda to a certain point. It's not just It's not just a story of a serial killer. It's also, they want to make a point about the larger misogyny here and the fact that and which is, I believe, is true, though, the stuff about there were people who really got behind him, right? Like even when he was found guilty, there were people, good on you, the fact that he was killing these people, even when it did make him a hero to some people, right? It was.
Well, the whole there's a bit where you'll have to remind me of but the bit where there's a film, a kind of documentary with his son.
Yes.
And they are sort of reenacting what happened
with his sister, his little sister. Yeah,
well,
that's the very ending, and it's like chilling as fuck.
Well, that actually did happen, I think.
Is that right?
And
okay.
Furthermore, there's more to it than that. And it's sort of kind of worse, I think, as far as I remember reading. Anyway.
So you were saying that there are some previous films based on this case, because I didn't know about that. I have to admit.
Yeah. Yes, there are. Yeah, quite a few.
Okay.
Like as in
I'd be
3,
kind of interested.
I think. Yeah, and not that long ago. There's one not that long ago, but I haven't got the article up, so I can't reference it.
Right.
I read. So yeah.
But anyway, sticking with this film, I thought this was a very impressive piece of work. What did you make of Holy Spider?
I thought it was really, really powerful and really just. It's one of those things where when there's a film in a foreign language, but you can just tell that the acting is brilliant.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed.
Not like good, but brilliant sort of thing. Because the killer, Saeed,
Pakistani. Yeah.
He doesn't have a huge amount of dialogue.
No.
But so most of what he does is in kind of the mannerisms that he holds and the way that and there's lots of other attention to detail as well, like his hair and stuff like that.
Yeah. Also, like you said, like it's not so much what he says; it's also what he doesn't say and what he holds back. Yeah.
And all those things are really, really well done. And the bit where he's he kind of has a kind of blackout thing and freaks out towards his son, starts chasing him about. That's really good. It's really powerful as well, because
I think it's especially good. I think it's because they don't explain it really as well, right? Like you're left not quite sure why he's been triggered in that way, which makes it more interesting, I think.
Yeah.
It's not, there isn't a bit where he, where he goes, yes, where there's a exposition.
No exposition, no flashback, no like, it's because his wife doesn't say, listen, he had this, Jaffa cake throw, because it's at a picnic, like he was in a picnic and the war.
The wife as well, Fatma, I think she's really good as well. She does a really good job of like playing, like in a really like like sometimes when you watch this kind of movie, you don't quite understand, and actually for some people in real life as well. But there's that whole thing about blaming the victim or the like they don't understand like why did you stay with him, or why didn't you see what was happening? Or she does a brilliant job of like, I totally believed that she stood by her man.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like she did a fantastic job of conveying someone kind of filling in the gaps to themselves. There's bits like he's damaged his hand or there's something. And she asks a question, the camera just looks at, and you can almost see her filling in the gaps for herself. She, like you said, across the board, the acting is just phenomenal, I think.
I don't know what to say about this one now.
No, but you definitely see it, I think, with it. We were saying a little bit with some of the other films we enjoyed, but felt maybe a bit more like you wouldn't necessarily recommend Rimini to everyone, and Enys Men as well some people might not appreciate it. I think Holy Spider's a bit more of a wholehearted
it's
because even if it upsets you,
yeah,
good, it should upset you.
yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
not. Yeah.
It's again, it's not it's not a wonderfully happy film, but it is enjoyable in the sense of kind of every single person. I mean, I guess the thing is, it's it it's a major story, and again, and one of those things is interesting coming from an outsider's point of view. You're kind of coming into a major story that that has been retold, several times, because it is such a key moment in in the consciousness of Iran, because because of the way that it sort of it split that morality apart, sort of thing, what and really, so that that will be why it will have had to have been retold several times, because I think people just will keep coming back to it to kind of
Yeah, right. Try and process it.
yeah.
I also, even though I said, and it's true, the film does have an agenda, obviously, but that doesn't mean, should point out, it doesn't feel polemical, right? It doesn't feel as if it doesn't need to go out of its way if it does have any sort of message. It's because it's so like it doesn't, even though there are certain fabrications that they've done to make it more cinematic, like putting her in peril and stuff like that. I don't think they've essentially they haven't made anything up in terms of like you said, the authenticity of people's reactions and how it split people's ways of thinking about it. I think that feels very much like they didn't, for instance, they didn't make all the male characters like really kind of horribly mustache twirling villains.
Yeah,
I mean, there's one character who's inappropriate, but even that feels even that feels like realistic, or they haven't over egged the pudding. They haven't just made.
Yeah, I think like in terms of I don't know what would be Japan's one, but in terms of cultural events, like it would be on a par with something like if a film hasn't even been made about Grenfell, but as far as I know, like a fictional film or any film, but it would be something like that. That was like a massively key moment that encapsulated so many things that was that have been building up and going wrong, and culminated in this one event that we
Right, like it was one of
once
an
a
event
film
that shone a light on other problems. I suppose you could argue COVID did that in the UK as well, right? Like in terms of infrastructure, in terms of the NHS and stuff like that.
yeah, but not in a way that
the problems were there before.
yeah,
but
not in the way that Grenfell did, because Grenfell is so so powerful, and you can put yourself in there's 71 people died, I think. It's like you can put yourself in any of their scenario positions, and you can immediately be immersed in it in a similar way to this, like it and I can imagine if eventually, if a film does get made about Grenfell, more films will be made, because we'll keep coming back to it, in the same way as this one, because it's sort of like there's so many different angles to look at it from and to process it, that it
and like this story, it's not just a story about one bad person doing bad things, like the things, the bad things that are done have kind of tendrils and connections to all sorts of other it's not a moral black and white up and down thing, right?
There's people's
It's like,
reactions to it.
would you, like, for instance, would you blame the kind of enabling wife, or do you see her more as like a hostage to her social, her place in society, and is she, going along to get, it's a very, because that's what I liked as well. Even like our main protagonist, the Zara Amir Ibrahimi's character, she's not like she's very flawed as well in some ways. She's not like a super righteous kind of defender of truth or something. Like, she's kind of feeling her way as well, right?
Yeah. She doesn't quite know what she's doing and how to go about it.
And in a way, she causes more trouble for some people as well, right? Like when sometimes when she's poking around asking, it feels very much like, just leave that person alone.
Oh yeah, well, of course.
Even though you're trying to go, but you're kind of going around it. No, it's, the more I think about it, I mean, the more impressive it becomes, actually, this film.
No, but because again, because significant cultural events, I'd like to see a film about Grenfell that was made as well as this, like in terms of like how you treat your significant cultural events, that you explore characters through them carefully, and that you kind of because this it didn't like paint him as a monster necessarily, or it just explored his character. It explored his character almost dispassionately as it explored hers,
because other than the murdering of people, he's actually a very, very, very likable dad, isn't he? That's the thing.
Yeah, he's got a likable dad. He's just also I mean he does a lot of murdering, but
to be fair, though,
yeah, does do a fair bit. Like, but yeah, it's I don't know. Like we were saying, it's just so much is in the things that are unsaid, and in his mannerisms and stuff, to sway you this way and sway you that way and stuff. It's kind of interesting in that way.
I mean, I just as well. I'm wondering if you were talking about the important pivotal events as well. I'm wondering if it's necessary, because you were talking about the Grenfell thing, and I can't imagine there's a Grenfell movie coming along anytime soon.
No.
I'm wondering if, because of the events in this film are 20 years ago as well, right? I'm wondering if it is necessary to have that period of time before people feel ready. It takes a while to process it and digest it and think about it.
People are still pushing for justice. I mean, the other thing that's sort of again culturally significant was what's it? The murder of the murder in the car park. The murder of forgot his name. Damn it.
I know what you mean, though. The axe killing.
Yes. In that let me just sorry. Because of how that sort of uncovered the the workings of the establishment and stuff like that. Yeah, Daniel Morgan. But that again, that did happen 20, 30 years ago. Or was it more? Oh my god, it's more. And it's still ongoing, the justice, the hunt for justice. So I think these things have to be that has to be concluded somewhat before people can start, exploring these things properly. But yeah, that that's there's been documentaries on that, but not not a fictionalized film, I think. Yeah. Is there anything in Japan that's sort of like you can think of as like that?
Well, I suppose in living memory, it's the earthquake and the tsunami, right?
Yeah.
From,
But
2011.
that again is so big and broad ranging. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
Kind of
it's
more...
odd because you'd think so, but the thing is, I mean, I live here in Tokyo, just not that far down the coast, but the way it affected there and here is night and day, right? Because there was an entire town washed off the map, right? And I remember it, but for me, it was a scary few minutes, and pretty much that was about it, right? Whereas not that far away, people were just entire families were swept out to sea, and so that part of the country, is I mean, still you drive through it now and you can tell there used to be something here, but it's not there anymore. Slowly coming back, but
okay. Yeah.
Anyway, on that cheerful note,
hey,
thank you for watching us talk about some films for a bit.
And we would recommend that to pretty much everyone. That one. Yeah.
Bully Spider,
Yep.
Okay. Maybe not for your next children's party though.
No. Don't.
No.
Don't show it to your kids at all. In fact, not even if you want them to reenact the murders.
Yes. I'm glad the director of Maniac Driver didn't have a crack at this story.
Yeah.
That would have been a very different, slightly less sympathetic portrait, I think.
Okay.
Okay, then.
Bye.
Till next time. Bye.